Hey, it's Coach with Tactical Hyve. As you can see, I'm not on the range today. I'm in suburbia, and apparently there's some construction going on fairly close, so we're gonna have to deal with the noise. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about sighting systems that I used over my career. We started off with iron sights, like, since guns were invented. And then in the mid to late 80s, these new innovations started coming in. Guys started looking around and seeing these red dot sights that sport shooters were using. So this is the Aimpoint 5000. This is what I got when I got to Gold Squadron in the mid 90s. There were other, this was a Seymour. Again, it's made of plastic. It's kind of like it's like a giant doctor sight. Again, sport shooters used them. It gave you the ability to, instead of focusing on the front sight, you could focus on the threat and just put the red dot on the threat, and it kept your focus down. You have to pull back to get that front sight focus that we talk about when you're dealing with iron sights. The other thing here was the light. This light was revolutionary. It was small and powerful for the time. Remember, you're talking, late 90s here. 60 lumens we thought was really cool, and we didn't know better than to bolt this stuff to the barrel. Again, we're just innovating, thinking, okay, what's the capability that I want? I want something that I can, see at night, lights up either my iron sights or my red dot, on the target. I get a good positive ID on there. Quick side note on this. This was the original Surefire. I'm not sure the model. And then as we went through through time, things got a little bit beefier. They added cool little pigtails and stuff like that if you wanted to use them. I was more partial to just having that clicky on there. And then they started getting big. They started getting a little more robust. And I think this is probably the biggest one they came out with. It was enormous. It was bright as hell, had 3 batteries in it. Again, just too big. We didn't need this. Things got better, but initially this was awesome because when I was at SEAL Team 5, occasionally we'd put mag lights and we'd pipe clamp those to your MP5 and no optics. We just use that to illuminate the target, and you're able to see your iron sights on the target. So this was where the innovation was there. We wanted to make something that could do more than just your standard iron sighted gun. So in the late 90s, they started looking at this and testing pieces for it, right? By 99, they came out with the SOPMOD Block 1, what we know now, right? And that was like this basket that you could throw a bunch of pieces of equipment in there, right? So you had lights and lasers, sighting systems, other accessories. SOPMOD stands for Special Operations Peculiar Modifications. So this is not something that your regular Army guys would need, your regular line guys. No, this was, basically for us. We started using nods. The PEC 2 here, this thing has an IR flood and an IR pointer laser. So on nods, you have to bring this up. You just hold it right about here, into your shoulder, and you're looking over the top of it, and you're projecting that dot and the big flood, so you can actually see what the hell was going on. You knew where the bullet was going to go, wherever that dot was. The rail here is the next thing. This was the Knights Armament made this rail system. So it replaced your foregrip. It's fairly robust, but you could now attach things to it instead of the barrel. So your barrel harmonics were better, and it didn't start messing with your point of impact by attaching things to the barrel, which we now know is not a good idea. So instead of clamping that sucker to the barrel, I can just clip it on to the rail system. The Comp M2 now, instead of being up there on that carry handle, it's now down. It's mounted on this, the rail here. We got rid of the carry handle, and we have a rail up here. So I mount this on the rail, and now it's co-witnessed. So I can look through these iron sights, and the red dot should line up right perfectly with that front sight post. So now I can now look at the threat and not worry about pulling my focus back to that front sight. But again, still not trusting these because the battery life was not what it is now. So if this went down, I had my irons there, and I was used to shooting those anyway. We had gunsmiths there at Team 6, and they would set up the gun however you want it. The free-floating tube, this was the first one that I'd ever seen, and that just keeps everything just completely off of the barrel. So from the barrel nut out, nothing's touching it. So now for that, initially they would just mount stuff onto this tube, just screw it in, kind of like my sling attachment point is just a hole drilled in there and an eye bolt screwed in there. It works, but it's, you need somebody who knows what the hell they're doing and has the right equipment. I can't just in my cage slap on and modify my gun like I can now. So this was the CVL, or the PEC 5. So it's a visible red laser. For what it was, red lasers are really good for, you put it on a guy and it makes it personal, okay? You know where that shot's gonna go. Prior to SOPMOD, as things started developing, and even while the SOPMOD program was going on, you still had this stuff that was left over. This is a 12.5-inch barrel, left over from what came before the CQBR. And the CQBR was an upper receiver that you would mount, at a 10.3, we call it a 10-inch, whatever, a 10-inch barrel, and you would mount that onto your gun and use it for CQB. It was to replace the MP5, because 5.56 out of a short barrel is still good. And you're shooting an intermediate rifle round instead of a pistol round. So at close range is what it was going to be used for. It worked out just fine. What we did find, though, is that nobody wanted to swap their uppers all the damn time. So most everybody ran with 2 guns. You'd have a gun that, if you're going to go out hiking in the woods, you could still use it for CQB, but it worked better. Longer barrel, you mount M203s, whatever else you needed on there, the size of the Car 15. Eventually, that evolved into the Mark 18 as we roll along here. So part of the original Block 1 was the ACOG sight. It's a 4-power sight. The Optic gives you the ability to actually see what's going on downrange. And then it has a reticle in there that's specifically made for the 5.56 round. You have your bullet drop compensation in there. So out to 400 yards, you could make a decent shot with this sucker. Now, originally, this thing had a range sight, is what they called it. It's like a little iron sight with a short little radius up here. And that was the idea, that you would use that for CQB if you had to. In the early 2000s, when I was at Warcom, we procured a bunch of these. It's a doctor sight, it's a miniature red dot sight, and it pretty much puts that red dot almost in the same spot it was back on the carrying handle. But what it gave you is, with a cheek weld, you're looking through your telescopic sight at range and you can get a decent shot there. And then at close range, you'd have a chin weld and you're looking through there, seeing the red dot, and it works just like your aim point. Now, as we moved on, this thing started getting a little chunkier. What we got here for the Optic is a Night Force 2.5 to 10. And again, we mount a doctor on there. So again, if you're a designated marksman, this was gonna be your sight. The glass is awesome. The thing is tough as nails. One of the main reasons you want high quality glass is if you're gonna be staring through it all day long. And that was the idea here. As a DM, you're up there either assisting the sniper or you're there glassing. A lot of observation was happening with this. Okay, now, you could take the shot, you got positively ID, take the shot. I think this gun is, 600-700 yards all day long. It'll perform. Now, if you got close in, you got your red dot. As we progressed on, we went on to the Block 2. And Block 2, they started taking some things out of the basket and adding other things in. So Daniel Defense rail, they solidified the Mark 18 as instead of the CQBR, now everybody got the rifle and they call it a Mark 18, right? And it came with certain things on the list. They started upgrading the equipment. So the whole idea behind the SOPMOD program is that you could bring these things into it, and then as they got obsolete, you could push them out. We wanted new and better capabilities as it came in. So if you could miniaturize it, ruggedize it, and waterproof it, whatever it was, make it smaller, make it tougher, and make it waterproof. Along with that, battery life increased as well. So, you know, nowadays, you know, little red dot sights, you change the battery on your birthday, maybe, you know, rather than every time you went into the house, because you want to make sure that light was good, right? Now we're getting a little spoiled. They also combine some things. So the ATPIL, the LA5 PEC, it combined basically the PEC 5 and the PEC 2 all in one package. So you had your visible laser and your IR laser. And the biggest boon to mankind on that one was you didn't have to come in at night to sight in your IR laser. You could just sight in your visible and it was on the same apparatus, so it went to the same spot as your IR. So you could sight that sucker in and you'd be good to go. As we continue on, we're going on to Block 3 stuff is starting to show up now. They're moving away from that big Daniel Defense quad rail to a free-floated, I guess Daniel Defense was free-floated as well, but we're cutting down the weight. So we're going to M-LOK now because they did their studies and they figured, okay, that thing's the new best option. And again, making things, you know, lighter and smaller. The next generation laser is also coming out. I think it's hitting the street here shortly, if it's not out already by the time you guys see this. And it's about half the size of the ATPIL, and it has all the capabilities that the ATPIL has. So as we move forward into the future, we want to keep that trend going, making things smaller, tougher, waterproof, and battery life is always a consideration. As we move forward, hopefully this is that trend's gonna continue. We want as much capability as we can for the weight and size of the weapons platform. So, as always, if you like this content, like, subscribe, leave me a comment.